3 years. Hi, and you are? Oh, I'm Mike Hogan. Hi, Mike. Pleasure to meet you. Anyway, so electronic mail.
You have to push it.
So we have broadcast mail, we have discussion mail, and moderated discussion mail. I'm not going to read the slides. Basically, broadcast mail is the most common type of electronic mail list. One person sends something out. Anybody who replies, it goes to the whole list. There is also actually that's a discussion mail. The broadcast mail is just you send something out and people reply, it goes to the sender only, and nobody else gets to see it. So things like club announcements, for example. And then the moderated discussion list is where anybody can send something to the list, and a moderator, typically it's a board member, will decide as the gatekeeper, does this go or not go to the list? So if it's, if it's someone asking for a peanut butter recipe rather than asking about a club function, they may not want to have the peanut butter recipe go out to the whole list. So let's talk about some different types of electronic mail. Facebook. Facebook, who's on Facebook? Let me ask this one, who's not on Facebook? Two hands go up. For the benefit of the people listening to the tape, almost every hand went up who has Facebook, only 2 people have Facebook in the group. So a lot of clubs tend to use, Debbie has the handouts. A lot of clubs tend to use Facebook as their only distribution system. This is great until you hit the people who are not on Facebook. And I know it's odd to say this and odd to hear this, not everybody is on Facebook.
I'm not.
That's a classic example. Debbie's not on Facebook. Caitlin's on Facebook to embarrass her parents. And her parents get back at her every chance they get, trust me. So, the pro is it's easy to set up a group on Facebook. The con is really not everybody's on there. And there are some people who have privacy issues with Facebook, and these are being addressed a little at a time. There are some other things about Facebook which can make marketing a little challenging. I'll talk about one of those in a couple minutes. Yahoo Groups has been very popular for a lot of square dance clubs. The only problem with Yahoo Groups at this point as an email service is Yahoo was bought a couple years ago by Verizon. It has now changed its name to Oath. O-A-T-H. I couldn't remember it for a second. That's how wonderful a name it is. And probably Groups is going to go away. Was there a comment?
Eric Hennerlaw, Cormadera. You mentioned that a couple years ago when you did this thing, too,
Yeah.
and it's still around. So it's kind of been the pending thing for the last 3 or 4 years, but it's still going to be there.
The issue with Yahoo Groups, which is now Oath Yahoo Groups, their marketing people need to talk to Mike Hogan, is that they haven't announced what they're going to do with it. So if you use Yahoo Groups, just be aware it could go away without much warning. We just don't know. It's what I would call an unstable platform. It still works, it's still great, but be aware it may not be there in a year or 2 years or 3 years. They just haven't announced what they're going to do with it yet. They also are talking about how they can better monetize their resources they've bought, which means they may start putting ads in everything. We just don't know. That takes us to Google Groups. Google Groups, I actually like if you want to get started with an email list quickly. It's a very easy setup. You do not have to have a Google account to be on the mailing list. And actually, it's very reliable. The initial setup can be a little daunting, but there's enough how-tos and dummies guides, like Google for Dummies, that it'll take you through this pretty easily. Now, if you want to do a more professional list, like a newsletter type email broadcast, something very finished and professional, there are services such as MailChimp. MailChimp and some other competitors will give you free services for email for a limited number of subscribers. In MailChimp's case, it's the first 2,000 subscribers and 12,000 emails per month is totally free. It is reliable, it is easy to set up, but actually composing the emails, they give you a big HTML editor, you can paste in graphics, you can do a lot of complicated things with it. It takes a little bit of patience to get started with it, but once you get started with it, it's pretty easy. It takes you through like a little wizard to send out each one of your email broadcasts. I've used this, among others, for several years off and on. For the Gay Callers Association, we actually went to a much simpler email system. we found that this was great if you're a marketer, because one of the things MailChimp does give you is it will tell you when you send out an email who's received it, who's opened it. Yeah, I'm getting a look of shock. So they embed something called, it's basically a 1-bit pixel gets embedded in your message. And that pixel is a graphic with a unique name at their servers. And when that pixel is requested from their server, they know somebody's opened the message. So if you want to actually do formal marketing and see what your response rate is, MailChimp is actually very much worth the time investment to get started with. Other solutions. A lot of local internet service providers will give you email services, sometimes free, sometimes not. There are plenty of shareware email systems that you can bring up yourself on your own computer. I don't usually recommend that. Frankly, I'm a computer network architect, and I have better things to do than maintain yet another system. I want somebody else to maintain that for me. You can, if you want, use a regular Gmail account or some other free email account and just use blind copy to paste all the email addresses in. But that does get clumsy after a while. And there are some limits on there. Thank you, Eric. So this is a sample MailChimp template. I'm trying not to get in front of the screen. So I have a pointer, I can use this. So Wednesday night lessons, and here are the different things you can just drag and drop onto the template when you're sending out a MailChimp. I'm sorry, I'm in the way. I apologize, Lisa. This is Google Groups. All of your functions are down one side, and then you compose the email. It's very much a simple email system, a little bit simpler, not quite as glamorous, but it gets the job done. I will say for Google Groups, I have the privilege of helping to start Temple Squares in Salt Lake City. And they started as a GLBT club at a gay pride festival, and we took a lot of names, and we did demo tips. And then we sat down and thought, oh heck, what do we do with this? We have to have a website. So the weekend before, in Google Groups, which also has a basic website function, we brought up a mailing list, we brought up the website. It took about 3 hours, and it was done. So it's a good starting point if you want to get something quick and dirty and just get it running right away. So let's talk about websites, because websites are the next big thing. So once you get someone's attention, what's the first thing they're going to ask you these days? What's your website URL? What's your website address? So you got to have some kind of a landing page. You also need to have that URL available if you send it out via Twitter, via Instagram, via any other. You have to do cross-selling on social media, which we'll also talk about in a minute. So you got to have a website. Now, setting up websites is a lot easier now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So there are traditional websites and prepackaged websites. A traditional website, and I promise you, we do have handouts and we do have this presentation available as well online. I'm not going to read everything. A traditional website means you hand code everything. You write the HTML code, you test it. It's kind of a pain in the patootie. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I'll show you a couple of examples. There are also prepackaged websites. And I talked about Google Groups as one of them. There's a couple of others we'll talk about, and I'll show you a couple of examples. There's also some customizable websites. I talk about WordPress here. WordPress is a very popular website publishing platform. You have to customize it. It's not quite rocket science, but there are hundreds of thousands of templates, beautiful templates you can choose from, and your content just slips into the template very nicely. So if you're willing to put a little bit of work into it, WordPress is a really nice, easy way to go if you want to be flexible and have a lot of different content that you can manipulate easily. So, traditional websites, you could go to GoDaddy or Hostway or your local ISP or a WordPress account, and then prepackaged, I talked about Google sites, I'll show you Weebly, there's Wix, and there's GoDaddy Website Builder. And all of the prepackaged ones, you basically plug it in, you say, here's my website name, here's my group name, here's my contact info, you fill it in, you hit save, and there's your website. Very straightforward. I would plan either, well, at least for a prepackaged website, although I did do the Google Sites website, the Temple Squares, in like a couple, 3 hours. give yourself like a weekend to take your time and get to know it and test it out. And we can talk more about that if you want a little bit later, how you actually test the website. So, this is the different trade-offs between websites. It boils down to a traditional website is extremely flexible, you get exactly what you want, it can be cheaper, but it's a lot more work. I am a big fan of the prepackaged websites, so much so that I actually went to a site called Weebly for my Square Dance articles website. Did we get the other handout as well as a one-page handout?
No, we got the one.
Just the one?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have that list going around?
Yes.
So if you will please sign up on that list, I will email you, and we won't lose the list this year, I promise. Well, I'll email you a one-page sheet with all of this information and links to everything. So this is Bill Adler's website, just because he's not here, but I can pick him on him anyway, from 2,000 miles away. This is a custom website that his partner built for him, and it is very complex to maintain, but it has exactly what he wants on it. A couple of things here that I want to point out, if you're going to put up a Square Dance Caller website, is he has a bookings page and a publicity page. Publicity page has things like headshots, a bio. Bookings page has things like rates, terms of booking, how to get a hold of Bill, what his calendar is. A lot of people also have another button that says calendar, so you can check the calendar very quickly. If you're going to do a calendar, I strongly recommend using Google Calendar because you can embed a Google Calendar in almost everybody's website. And you can share Google Calendars and they go to your phone automatically. It's a very easy way to get your group's calendar online, whether it's the Square Dance Club or whether you're a caller, either one. This is what WordPress looks like. This is actually Janine State Alexander's work website and the Oregon Health Care Association. And this is one of many different templates, but these menu items on top, well, she can plug a different template in here, and maybe those will be on the side instead, without having to actually change anything. This is the value of WordPress. This is what WordPress looks like on the back end. You have a series of functions, and you can edit pages, and here are some of the pages, and you can decide, should this be searchable? Do you want me to, do you want a specific date and time? This is the event page for her website, actually. But everything looks just like this in WordPress on the back end. This is the Temple Squares Google site that I mentioned that came up in 3 hours. That's a Google Calendar. We had the website. We had everything along the side. This is all predefined by Google. All I had to do was pick a template, and that was it. It worked beautifully. I have a question in the back. One moment, I'll bring the mic to you. All questions on mic, please. Name and city.
There used to be a suggestion that when you buy your URL, you buy the .org, the .net, along with the .com. Is that still?
Yes, and your name and city, please.
I'm sorry. I'm Pat Byerly, Bo Byerly's wife.
Thank you so much.
He calls in Wake Forest and in Durham.
Very good. Yes, so domain registration is very important. You do need, if you can get a com, that's usually the easiest. Com, net, and org are the traditional ones. And the registration fees vary. Be aware that people will try .com first. They might think to try .net or .org. In the US and in Canada, there's no big restrictions on it. In some countries, you have to meet certain restrictions for certain types of domain extensions. There's a whole bunch of new ones. For example, well, not new, there's US, which is the United States. There's CA, which is Canada. But there are also some new nonprofit extensions, educational extensions. The list is like, there's almost 100 different domain name extensions now, which are called top-level domains. And every one of them is different, with different rules. And some of them are there's like a .tv site, which is the island of Tuvalu, and they make their money selling, Gilligan's Island.tv for like $1,000 per registration per year. It's an interesting thing. But yes, you need to get a domain registration. You need to track the domain registration. When does it expire? Make sure it doesn't expire.
I got a question. Eric Kellerlab, question, where does Squarespace fit in this whole grouping of
Squarespace, I did not have it here, but Squarespace is yet another prepackaged website plan, like Wix or Weebly. Works just fine. I didn't do a lot of updating on this other than graphics from the last 2 years. I was asked to keep this as consistent as possible. This is the 3rd year of a 3-year presentation cycle. So they asked that I do the same thing for West Coast, Central, and East Coast. But yeah, Squarespace is another one. In fact, the Gay Callers Association uses Squarespace, and I can show what that looks like a little bit, to do their website. And in fact, that's where I publish the call sheet, is in the members only section of Squarespace. And if you want to have published content be enforceable, say so only members can see it, there's an extension to Squarespace called MemberSpace. And that's where you pay, and these do cost a little more money. So with MemberSpace, you upload your content, and you get a specific URL for that content. So every issue of the call sheet I create, I upload it, and it gets a specific URL. And that URL is linked to MemberSpace, and they make sure that anybody who sees that content is a member of your website. This is Wix. This is Janine State Alexander's club site. And one of the things I love about this website is this PayPal button. Let's talk about PayPal. If you do not take credit cards, if you do not take PayPal, you will have problems attracting younger dancers. At one of the intro nights we gave at El Camino Reelers, we actually had a dancer come in on our first intro night, little Japanese girl, and I said, "Hi, welcome to our dance, happy to have you, $8 please." And she handed me her phone. Apple Pay? No. Oh, debit card? No. Oh, I can't dance. You can dance, you can dance. What I told her was, you know what? It's only $8, no one's turned away for lack of funds. If you have a good time, go in, don't worry about paying. Have a good time, come back next month and pay me twice. And she did. But that's the exception. So, you should be able, at least on your website, to take PayPal, because that will let people use PayPal or a credit card or a debit card to pay for your functions. Whether it's lessons or a dance card, Chi-Town Squares does a prepaid dance card, get a discount for buying 10 dances or more in advance. I hear wind chimes. She's smart, she's silenced me. It's okay, Lisa, I don't mind. Now you're on tape forever. The whole board of governors is going to hear your phone. They all know your ringtone now. Don't get nervous. All right, so PayPal, it costs almost nothing. It costs nothing to establish it, and it's not that much of a charge to actually use PayPal. So definitely grab a PayPal account and use it frequently. And I think Eric Hennerlaw has a question.
It's Eric Hennerlaw again. So the PayPal thing, what occurs to me, is, and you're talking about from the context of the clubs and the classes and all that,
right.
There's also weekend festivals. Weekend festivals are typically higher dollar amounts, say $50 or more per person. And so I run a couple of weekends, and for the first time this year, I've set it up so I'm going to be taking on-site credit cards using a PayPal chip reader so I can take credit cards, because I realize that everybody pays by cash or credit card, cash or check. But if you want them to pre-register for next year and they don't have the funds with them, you always have a credit card with you.
Right.
And so starting this year, I'm going to say, because everything I do in my life is by credit card,
right.
Why shouldn't I take credit cards as well?
Exactly.
Fees are low, 2.7%, that's it.
Right. So there's PayPal, there's Square, there's a couple of others. Again, our club actually invested in a Square reader, but whichever you want, they all work beautifully. They're all around 2.5 to 3.5%, and it makes sense to your younger dancers. I know you're looking at me going, I'm not going to pay $8 for a square dance night with a credit card. Trust me, your younger dancers want to pay $8 with a credit card or with Apple Pay. And if you do decide to get a chip reader of some kind, consider getting something that will also do what's called contactless payment, which is what Apple Pay is. So, because trust me, they're going to come in if they're younger, they're going to have an iPhone, they're going to want to just hand to the phone to scan it to take your payment. It will make your life easier in the end, and the small amount you're charged, the 2.5%, 3.5%, is nothing compared to the cost of getting a new body in the door who stays. You want to make it convenient for them. This is what Wix looks like on the back end. Similar to Weebly, similar to WordPress. You drag and drop stuff. So, and I'll actually show you the front end of this. This is a Weebly site. again, like Wix, this is danceinfo.org, and if I change the template, all of this content stays the same. It just relocates to a different part of the screen. And again, with Weebly, you drag items. So I dragged a picture, and then I uploaded a graphic. I dragged the button, and then clicked on the button to make it go to another page in the website. Very straightforward, very easy. This site took me about a weekend to get up and running the way I wanted it. It wasn't a horribly large investment of time. So let's talk about social media. Many, many options. At a minimum, you're going to want a Twitter account. For the newer dancers, the younger dancers, they're going to be looking at Instagram. Some of them may still be using Snapchat. There's a wide range. And if you go to the Square Dance Marketing Manual that Mike Hogan's committee put out, they have a separate chapter for each one of these. It's great. How to set it up, how to send out information, how to send out content. So here we're talking about Facebook and Twitter and Meetup. You need to do some planning and consideration, because it's still, social media has a shelf life. And it's a very short shelf life, sometimes measured in like half an hour, especially if you're under the age of like 20. Well, that was 15 minutes ago, and it's true. It is so true. So I know that Brian is waiting for the Facebook story. So if you are on Facebook, you can set up an event on Facebook, and you can do what's called boosting the event. Boost means you pay the money, $25, $50, $100, $1,000, and they will reach several thousand people and put your event as a little click here button ad in their feed, in their live feed, when they read their friends page. It is very effective. We don't get a lot of people at El Camino Reelers who happen to find us through Facebook necessarily, but we get enough that we are still investing $25 every month in advertising our fun nights. I see a question coming out of Eric.
The question, how does it? So when you boost to Facebook, is it random boosting to anybody, or is it your friends, or is it people that meet certain criteria? How does it do that?
I swear I did not give them a copy of my script before I started. So to boost a post, thank you, Eric. You can actually define who it goes to. You can define an age group, you can define a target location. I actually have a fairly, and I think I may even have a slide on this, a fairly specific set of criteria that Facebook will save, and it keeps bringing it up every month when I boost, our monthly event. So there's only one thing wrong with Facebook. They read everything. So 1 month, I took our fun night, which is a no experience required square dance night, half squares, half something else like contra or trad or just something in circles, pick something. It's half and half, and it's designed to get people in the door. We collect their email information and their phone number, and then we recruit them for what we call partitioned class classes. And in the Innovate and Motivate session I have with Harlan tomorrow, we'll talk more about that. But in the case of Facebook, they read what you put into your boost. And your boost starts off as the actual ad content, or whatever your event was. It's everything in there. So the trick to boosting, you don't have to put your whole event text in. You want just enough to get them to click to learn more. That's all you need. So 1 month, one of our local retiring county supervisors was signing free copies of a couple of books. He was a history major. He was retiring to teach history. His local history books that he was signing for free at the community center where we're going to dance it. So the community center director said, you know what? Ken Yeager is going to be selling these books, or actually giving away these books and signing them. Why don't we do a book signing right before your square dance night, and we'll get more people in who have never heard of you. I said, that's great. So I put, former county supervisor Ken Yeager will be signing his new book. And I hit boost, and I waited for the 25 to 30 minutes to get the acknowledgement, and I got an email saying, your boost has been frozen. Well, what do you mean it's been frozen? your boost may contain inappropriate political content. Nostrovia comrade. They were certain it was a political ad, so they locked my account from doing any boosting. I was directed to a special page. I had to send them the front and back, copies of the front and back of my driver's license. I had to put in all my information all over again. And I had to wait for a code to be snail mailed, postal mailed to me, to make sure I lived at the address on the driver's license. And I had to put the code back into that page 10 days later to be able to unlock my account to finish boosting, at which point our event had already happened. And now every time I boost an event for El Camino Reelers, I have to check a box that says, this is or is not a political post. And every post now says, this post paid for, or this boost paid for by El Camino Reelers, like not-for-profit square dance club. Because now we're marked forever in Facebook's archives as a political organization. What was the trigger? The trigger was former county supervisor Ken Yeager. Just mentioning a politician's name was enough to get me tagged as a political operative comrade. This is all because of the Russian scandal. So don't do that. Don't use politicians' names. Don't talk about politics or things like, the mayor's going to give us a proclamation. Don't do it. That's my Facebook story. Which is why I frequently go, das vidanya, comrade, when we finish our square dance nights now. We're all Russian operatives. And again, see that square dance marketing manual? When you see Mike Hogan, you tell him, I cross-sold exactly as he asked. And he'll listen to this in the tape and go, oh, that's, he remembered. So I talked about Facebook. So other things about Facebook. If you have a recurring event, post the events 2 or 3 or 4 months in advance. More than that, and people look at it and go, oh, it's just the same thing over and over. 2 or 3 or 4 months is appropriate. Keep your page current. I talked about the short shelf life of social media, but Facebook is like measured in seconds sometimes. So put new stuff up, upload pictures. As I said, start with an event that goes in your Facebook page's calendar. And then upload photos from the event afterwards, and you'll be boosting off the event. It makes it very easy. And I do have the warning on here, do not mention politics or politicians. So I put that in, this is new since last year. Twitter. So, anybody here not know what Twitter is? Okay. So for those on the tape, Twitter is a medium which is basically one-line posts. Each entry in it is called a tweet. And it's 140 characters. They shorten URLs automatically. And there are people who will sit there and watch their phones and watch their Twitter feeds all day long. I can't do it, I'm too old. But we do cross-post everything to Twitter that we post on our Facebook event page. We post to Twitter. We also post to Meetup, which we'll talk about in a minute. And we also are now starting to post to Instagram, which is what people younger than us are actually using. And trust me, none of the younger dancers you are looking for are on Facebook anymore. Oh, Dad, that's for you and Mom. I don't use that. They use Instagram, they use Snapchat. And there's this like 18 to 20 month window for social media when each new media platform is the thing because their parents aren't on it. And then it's over again. Instagram is almost at the end of its window, but it's still popular. Same thing for Snapchat. And I don't know what else is coming up the road. We'll find out. Meetup. Meetup is a paid service. It is free to the actual members, but paid for the organization. It is currently $15 a month still. And Meetup lets you find total strangers who are looking for events to go do stuff. This will bring in people probably in the 20 to 40 year age range. And Mike Hogan may have a different take on that, but my impression from looking at the responses we're getting a lot of 20-somethings, a lot of 30-somethings, and a few 40-somethings from Meetup. So if you go into Meetup as a member, you say, hi, I'm Teresa, and I'm 28, and I like dancing. And it'll show you everything within like a 10-mile radius of you, or 20-mile radius of you, that has the keyword dancing. It's a great way to find new people. We've found a few new people from Meetup, and something else I need to mention about this is you can't depend on any one form of publication. You can't have just a website and figure people will find your website magically. You have to have a website, you have to have Twitter, you have to have Facebook, because older people square dance too. You have to, we're older now, I know, it hurts to say it. YouTube is another place that's a very hot advertising medium. If you have videos, I use this carefully, of people having fun, if they're grimacing, don't upload it. If you have fun videos, high energy videos, throw them on YouTube, you'll be amazed. And in the YouTube description, you put in your club's website URL, that's the cross-sell. And maybe even your Twitter feed and your Instagram feed, so they can find you, so they know where else to go to look on their other preferred forms of media. Anything on this before we move on? Anything else before we move on? Okay, we're going to move on. Visual hook sell. So this is the point in Albuquerque where Mike Hogan stood up and yelled and pointed at the screen. These are the posters that we used initially for our monthly intro nights. We have a lovely visual, talented artist. His name is Ed Wilson, and he did the first poster, and then he just changed the color for the following months. And when that design got too old, he found way more design functions, way more design concepts. I love the Snickers one, Dark Side of the Moon. These are all for the same event, which Eric has called, by the way. Plug. But these are all the same event. I mean, but you want to get their attention, especially on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, where it's a very visual thing. Oh, Eric's reaching for the mic.
So everything you're talking about is really great. This is Eric kind of logging in. And you're talking about the technicalities of getting this stuff out here. The question that I run into, our groups run into, is content. Now, here's a great example. Those are great flyers. You have somebody who's very talented who's creating these flyers, these posters and diagrams. So how can you help us to create good content, whether they're flyers or Twitter feeds or whatever they might be going in your Facebook page?
That is the hardest part of this, is creating and maintaining the content. We're lucky to have a good artist. I think most square dance clubs have an artist. You have to ask. You have to go into the ranks of the members and ask them, do they have any kids or parents or cousins who are artists who will do this kind of stuff for you? You got to ask them. There's no other substitute. There are various programs you can use that have prepackaged templates. You know, honestly, I've done something like this using Microsoft Word templates. They have a bunch of templates in Office Online. But I don't have a magic answer for that, and I'm sorry, Eric, I wish I had a better answer. And by the way, no, you can't hire Ed Wilson, he's our exclusive. Mike was like, can I? No. But no. But no. This is for our blast classes. Again, graphics attract attention, and we wanted to get people's attention. And we put this on Facebook and Twitter and Meetup, and we actually got attention. And we'll talk, at the other session, I'll talk more about that. We went from 1 student to 11 students graduating over the course of a year. Big difference by using things like this to get people's attention and snag them. So, a cross-sell sample email. What, where, when, and how much. You got to have those things in every email or in every description in social media that you post. We chose these hashtags. A hashtag is something that is searchable across multiple forms of media. So if you put into Google the hashtag #El Camino Reelers or #El Camino Reelers, you'll find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Meetup, on Facebook. You'll find us all over the place. We also chose ECR Dance Party, Square Dance Party, and Square Dance. And you can go through and do some searching on hashtags with Google and see what brings up the most hits for places you like or places you'd like to be seen at. And then the last thing is, we had on our website a special landing page just for the fun nights. So rather than going to the site and having to search, we put it right there. Click here and you'll go to our fun night page. So I just talked about this. There's the clickable link. There's our hashtags. So here's the checklist. Do you have a domain name? Because you were asking about that earlier. Do you have a domain name? Do you have a website? Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Meetup, Pinterest is another one. There are much more than this. All of them in the Square Dance Marketing Manual. This is in there. And if you give me your email, I'll send you a clickable link version of all of these. The Square Dance Marketing Manual is in the CALLERLAB knowledge base. Now, I did create, just for this CALLERLAB, it'll last forever, a bit.ly URL shortener, which is bit.ly/CL marketing, which points to that CALLERLAB knowledge base article. If you don't trust bit.ly or short URLs, you can use the full URL, that's fine. Other resources, just so you can try them, our Fun Nights page, how we restructured our recruiting and classes, and again, we have short URLs for all of this as well. Doing pretty good on time. I will also now pop onto the keyboard and start showing some of the different things we've talked about. Any questions so far? In the back. And I'm going to sit down in front of the keyboard while Mike's being brought to you.
Mike Breska from Anchorage, Alaska. Just to comment on hosting your website, you probably want to make sure that whoever is hosting your website, that is their primary business, or at least a major core part of their business. And I say this because I had a website set up through my phone company. And that was fine, it was free, no big deal, until I changed phone plans and my website went away. Their hosting was grandfathered into my old plan, and they decided they weren't going to do that anymore. And when I changed phone plans, it was gone. I had to change to Google.
Do me a favor, when you're done, and you'll have my email from the presentation you get, please email me that question to remind me. I will probably not do this presentation for a fourth year, but if there's a follow-on, like a social media presentation that the board wants me to do, or if there's some other follow-up, like surviving technology or technology fatigue, something like that, let me know, and I'll put that in the next presentation. That's a wonderful point. So, professionally, I am a computer network architect and engineer. All of my clients have websites. They use professional hosting companies. GoDaddy is certainly one. Some use Network Solutions. Some use Squarespace. It depends what you happen to like. But for the love of Pete, please use a paid service. Free is worth every cent you haven't paid for it, and you may or may not have it in a month or a year or 10 years. And a website is the basis for everything else, because all the social media you have means nothing. People can't click on that social media to get more information, and they can't get to your landing page to find out what that's going to look like. Any other questions before we move on to the, oh, we have a question up front.
Lisa Schreiber, Los Angeles. Could you please elaborate more on the purchasing of a domain name? I'm really new at this. So,
how dangerously do you want to live? I'll do it live for you.
Great.
Okay.
Where's your credit card?
I have Apple Pay.
Why, thank you. I happen to like GoDaddy a lot as a professional in the IT industry because they have the most responsive tech support, 24/7. Now, some people don't like GoDaddy because in their early days, they had some very sexist advertising. I will tell you now that once they got bought by a venture capital firm, that went away. They were the only tech company to sponsor a major female racer, which was Danica Patrick, and they put her on the front page, not in skimpy clothing, in her actual racing uniform. They paid for the logo and paid for her racing car, and they promoted her very heavily until she retired very recently. So they have made a change. This is not the old, icky GoDaddy with girls in bikinis. So having said that, there are hundreds of domains. This is called a domain registrar, who will register domains, who will do websites, literally hundreds of them. On any of them, the process is the same thing. What website URL would you like to research, Lisa? What do you want to use for a name for your domain?
I need a name. Okay, Square 'em Up Weekend.
Square 'em Up Weekend. Let's see what we can find. Let's start with just square them up and see what happens. Takes, yes.
Well, we use UN.
Oh, you use
Square
up. Square, SQUAREUMUP. Okay, so that's what's in the search right now. I'm going to hit, now this is a live demo. I have no idea what's going to come up, and if it's something icky, I apologize. It's all Lisa's fault for the tape's benefit. There you go. SquareEmUp.com is available for $2.99. It's a sale right now for the first year, 2-year registration. You can also get .us. You can also get .net, .org, and .info. So there's an example of how to find the domain name and how to register it. And you would go ahead and click through, add to the cart. They ask for your credit card and a sample of blood, and you're all done. Or maybe your first or second born child.
What's that pricing?
I'm sorry, which was that?
The pricing.
The pricing? So normally it's $17.99 a year. They're saying here, this is a promotion, it's $2.99 with a 2-year registration. They run promotions all the time. If you are going to use GoDaddy, GoDaddy has a lot of coupons. You can get some coupons off places like Retail Me Not, but if you really want to get a good deal off GoDaddy, and I do this professionally, call them at 2 o'clock in the morning, because every shift has its own set of sales goals. And if you call the people on the night shift, they're more strongly motivated to give you a discount code to book as many services out of you as they can. A discount, well, whatever time. GoDaddy is to have 24 hours a day. So pick a time late at night, just not during business hours. The after hours people are really going to give you a better deal.
Is that 2 o'clock Eastern time?
It doesn't matter what time zone it is. The question for the tape was, is that Eastern time? It doesn't matter. Outside of business hours in your area. So,
That's really good.
so there's your undocumented tech buying tip. We have a question in the back. I'm sitting, so raise your hands high or I won't be able to see you.
Linda Torvik, Tennessee. My question is talking about asking about looking up something if it's available. I was told that when you start looking, be ready to pay, because if you search for it and they find out somebody's looking for it, your rates may go up if you don't get it while it's available.
That you have just crushed Lisa's dream.
If I'm telling her, do you want to buy it?
She has no more hope. She's going to slit her wrist right here, and it's all your fault.
I just warned her.
It's okay. No, that is true sometimes. I stick to the larger domain name registrars like GoDaddy or Network Solutions because they don't do that.
Okay.
Some of the smaller fly-by-nights do.
Okay.
Now, you could say the opposite. You could say, I'm trying to keep eye contact. I'm sorry, you keep leaning over. It's okay, sir. That's fine. So what you could do is if you have a small registrar, like moo.com is it Moo? No, it's I don't know what the name is. There's a couple of small registrars who are like non-profit registrars, and you can use those if you like, if you trust them, and that's fine. I have not had that problem using people like GoDaddy, Network Solutions. There's a whole bunch of them. And if you put in domain registrars, you'll see a list of literally thousands of names. If, just for you, here's the deal. You have my email address. If you want to know if something is safe to use or not safe to use, you can email me. I'll be happy to tell you what my experience has been. How's that for a value add? We have another question?
It's more of a comment. Cece Glidewell for Morgan. My employer decided he wanted a website for our business. He asked me to look into potential. He had particular ideas of names. So he said put in these lists. Some of them were already taken, but almost every one of them that I looked at that weren't, but I had to run it by him before I purchased. When I went back, they were taken. So it does happen. So if you want to go on and get a particular name, buy it right then, even if you just pay the first year. It's my recommendation.
And honestly, and thank you, honestly, you're talking about, usually it's between 20 and 30 bucks for the first year. It's not a huge amount of investment. So I can tell you're going to grab your laptop, Lisa, rush out that door and start going to SquareUp.com right now. You're on your phone probably, or just call them. Call them late at night. I'm telling you. So, oh, another question?
Couple comments and a question.
And you are?
My name's Brian Jarvis from Silver Spring, Maryland, also a geek. Twitter is now 280 characters per tweet instead of 140. Minor nit. Still be concise, it's very good. The mention of support, yeah, GoDaddy has been very good with support. Network Solutions has been good for me for support, but that's because my company pays them a whopping huge pot of cash each and every year. Thought.com is also very good for support. When we slide down to social media, support becomes a sparse thing. Facebook will point you to a lot of knowledge-based articles that are usually pretty good. Twitter has almost nothing by way of support. They have a support channel, but they'll just say, thank you very much for your comment, we value your input, and that's where it stops. Instagram has no support whatsoever. They have a place where you can ask for support, but it's a bit bucket. Everything just goes in and nothing ever comes back out again. So your best bet, I think, on those ones is simply to go to YouTube sometimes, or just do a general Google search to find help. But you're not going to find it from the source. But the question I had on the topic of websites, do you want to talk about Let's Encrypt?
Not particularly, but I can.
I'm just pointing out that Google Chrome as a web browser they're sliding into a more secure environment. That if your website does not have that wonderful little lock up in the corner indicating that you are a secure website, and that you, not so much that you're doing secured encrypted transactions, but that you are actually who you say you are, then you're going to get this little, as Alan's put up on the screen here, not secure.
Which means I'm going to have to pay weekly a little bit extra per year to get what's called an SSL certificate, which says you are exactly who you say you are. And I don't think, no, Bill has one. Danny's very good.
There's the lock.
So there's the lock, and if I look at the certificate, here it is, BillEiler.com, Let's Encrypt.
So, as I have not personally used Let's Encrypt, I have looked into it, but the general idea is they provide you a free web certificate.
Right.
Now you just have to click an extra box in the website creation that will incorporate it, and that may have a slight extra fee per month.
You know, if in your feedback forms, hint, because the Board of Governors does read them, Eric's turning red because he has to read every single one of those, I'm sure. If you want a follow-up session to talk about SSL and more advanced technology topics, we'll be happy to do one for you. But you gotta let the home office know what you want. And if you don't turn in a feedback form, they're never gonna know. And I don't recall how this session got on the slate originally 3 years ago, but I will tell you that in both Reno and in Albuquerque, the session was at least as packed, if not more packed, and we had different questions every session, and people seemed to really enjoy it. So let them know what you want, and whatever you want me to talk about technology, I'll come back and talk to you, happily. Another question?
Just to let you know, excuse me, Alan Riggs from Colorado. The marketing manual online is updatable as we go. So information from here that may not make it until the next CALLERLAB convention, if you present it to Mike, then he will get it in the manual. It's a living document. So updates and changes and additions will get on very quickly.
My understanding is, this is from Mike last year, is that this is now a knowledge-based article, and it's just going to keep getting posted under the same link. So the links I gave you for the knowledge base earlier in the slide, and this is, I got this from the CL marketing thing, the short bit.ly, which points to the long knowledge base entry, will always be up with the latest version. I really can't say it enough how wonderful a job the marketing committee has done with this document. Because here, let me bring this up and you can see a little bit better. Wrong way. So the first 5 sections are the essentials of marketing. After you go to essentials of marketing, It goes into brand management. Do you have a logo? Do you have a slogan? What is your club's logo? So at El Camino Reelers, for example, this is our logo, which is in the Bay Area. There's a long street called El Camino Real. And historically, they have these brass bells or iron bells that hung along the route to market. And that's why our logo has a bell on it, and rainbow, because we're an LGBTQ club. So we put this on everything. It's on our hats, on our shirts, it's all over our website. If you go to our classes, and we have this in every page as a header to make sure people see it. This is called branding. And then here's some no-cost tactics, and if you scroll down a little bit, here's the sections in social media: Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Facebook. Question in the back.
Yes, Mike Prescott, Anchorage, Alaska. Debbie's definitely getting her steps in today. So after my phone company dumped me and eradicated my website, I moved over to Google Sites. And it's fine, does the job, except that the URL is a little clumsy because it's https:// so on and so forth, googlesites.com, then my name, and then, you know. So I'm thinking, you know, maybe I want to create my own domain and move to that. Do you have any advice for how long or how to quickly make that known to the world?
Well, I create domain names for customers. Well, you saw us doing it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 15 minutes to create the domain name.
Right.
Once that's in there, you just have to point it to your website, and that takes another 5 or 10 minutes. And then it will take up to 2 or 3 days for that to propagate across the internet. Typically, it's much faster, especially if you're going to use GoDaddy or Network Solutions. They typically propagate within a couple of hours to most places. But the reason technically for that is when the internet was created, and I'm compressing a lot of stuff you don't want to hear about. The default time for a domain name change to propagate was 72 hours. And not everybody honors that, not everybody waits that long. Most people have a much shorter period to refresh, but it could be as long as, so when you go to change your DNS, your domain name system, your entries, pointing to your website, to your social media, whatever you want, what'll happen is you'll get a little warning saying, it may take up to 72 hours to propagate, and that's why it says that.
Okay, thanks.
But basically, you do this like on a Friday night, it'll be ready by Monday morning for most places.
Cool.
Other questions? We have a question up front. I should have given her my Fitbit to wear.
Hi, Melanie Bear from Fredericton, New Brunswick. Just wondering if you have any sites that you can go to help you make your logo or for graphic content for your sites. I use, like everybody, probably Google Images and do that, but you get the same old things over and over. So I was just wondering if you have any suggestions for that.
A couple of things on using images off the internet. There is something called an image filter, and let me see if I can bring up Google Images. Let me try something. For benefit of the tape, I went to Google, I typed in square dancing, and I clicked on images. And there's different types of images. There's clip arts, there's seniors, there's Shutterstock. Here's the thing. A lot of these images are licensed. You cannot use them legally without paying somebody for them. Now, I have not done this recently, and they've changed the search settings, so we'll see. There's safe search filters. I may have to find this online. There's actually a, well, one moment. So typing in Google image search public domain, and let's go to that page. There is actually a way to search in Google Images, and here's an example. We can do what's called a Creative Commons search. Creative Commons is a public domain, or a public intellectual property domain system where if you say this can be used by anybody for free, that's a Creative Commons license. So you can actually filter in Google and most other image search engines what's free and what's not free. If something has a watermark on it, it's not free, and you shouldn't use it. Also, if you are going to use images on your photos on your website, I don't think we did this because we have permission already, but get your photographer's permission. We were fortunate when we built our current website at El Camino Reelers that we have a fabulous member called, this is more of Ed Wilson's work, called Ken, who acts as a photographer, and so we have all these wonderful dance pictures that you see on our website and in our calendar and on our Facebook page, if I can get there. All of these came from Ken Siebert, who was very happy to give us a license to use them. And again, we hear more of his work trying to get people's attention, and we use different things, so it's not the same thing every time. Another question?
Alan Riggs from Colorado. If you're looking for logo development and such like that, there are some very economically affordable places you can go, like Fiverr.com. You post what you are looking for, whether it's a cover for a book or a business logo, something. You give them some information about what you had in mind or what kind of information you want on it and such, like a business name or your club name or your name as a caller. And it will go out to hundreds, if not thousands, of graphic designers out there, and for minimal prices like $5, you can get a custom design that you can use. I have some friends in the publishing department, book publishing, and they've done their covers for their books, and they are outstanding. So you have a choice as to, you'll get numerous things to choose from, and you can decide not to do any of them, and you figure out a different way, or you suggest changes and things. So it's an inexpensive way of getting a graphic designer.
Now, let's talk about graphic design for just a moment for logos or website usage or social media usage. When you go and get your proofs, it is improper and illegal to just use the proof. You have to pay the artist who created the proof. And here's the thing, you have to know what rights you are getting, because not all artists will give you the rights to modify the logo or to use it in a different context. So is it only for printing? Is it for printing and online? Is it for printing online and in a video? Do you own the rights or do they own the rights? The price will go up, but I will tell you right now, if it's your club and you're paying for it, spend the extra money so you own the logo and you can change it however you want.
One other comment, Debbie Cedar here. So he's talked about if you're using photographs to get the photographer's permission, also credit the photographer, but also get the permission of the dancers who are featured in that picture. You don't want anyone complaining, I didn't want my picture on the internet.
This may not be a problem in most clubs, although in the LGBT community, for many years, it was very common to say, does anybody here mind being in a picture? Because a lot of people were in the closet and they could be fired if their images were seen dancing in the gay square dance club. It's a very sad thing to contemplate now, but so there are also, actually I know at least one, if not two callers who have worked for high security agencies, and there are limitations on where their photo can be published and in what context. So security clearance, we're here near Washington, D.C., security clearance is something to take into account. If you have club members and you're in the Washington, D.C. area, do they have clearances? Can they be photographed? Ask them. Other questions? Anything else you want to see me demo at this point?
Eric Enterlog again. I was going to make a comment about don't go back to domain names and square them up with the rest of them. If you have an idea for a domain name, if you really have an idea that someday you want to do a website around that domain name, get the domain name now. Park it. Parking just means you're just holding on to it. I always thought that square dancing, we talk about modern square dancing, but there should be a website about modern square dancing, out there, modernsquaredancing.com sounds like a good idea, right? I got that website, I parked it, I have no website with it right now, but I parked that domain, someday I'll build out a website around that. But if you have an idea about something, you said, I want that website, get that domain, the domain names are very cheap, park it until you eventually build out your website to do it, or if you don't want to do it, you just let it go and expire. That's a very good thing to do.
What do you mean park?
Park it means you just bought it. So Lisa, after she leaves here, can buy squareup.com right now, and that's all she does. She's paid for it. She owns that domain name, even if she has no website or nothing else. She owns that for at least a year or two, whatever she pays for it. Now, in a year, she say, well, I'll hire Joe Blow or Susie Smith to build my website. They build a website. Susie Smith says, okay, what's the domain name? It's called squareup.com. She connects the two together. Bang, now it works, and it goes to her website. But if she never does that, she still owns squareup.com, and if you punch it in, it'll probably say no website found or something.
It might say this website domain name is no longer available because somebody else already owns it. Okay, so we're very shortly coming up on the break. I want to make sure that everyone who wanted to has signed up on the list with their name and contact info. This will give you access to the PDF of the slideshow that Alan put together. There was also a single sheet handout, which we have more of if anyone wants that didn't get it. Thank you very much, and Ellen will stick around to show you some
A couple other housekeeping things. Please fill out your critique sheets.
Yes.
You're going to hear this a lot. I am here for the third time because people filled them out the first 2 years. And we want to make sure we bring you content you like. The other thing is, for those who would like to know more about the recruiting method we were using, we talked about how we use blast classes. We did, and we changed how we recruit and went from 1 student a year to 11 students, 11 graduates. I am presenting with Harlan Kerr at 2:30 p.m. Yes, 2:30 p.m. Motivate and Become Innovative is the session name. And you are certainly invited to come see us and hear all about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome.